welcome. My name is Tom O'Kee. I'm with the Southern California Desert Video Astronomers. We are here in Whitewater, the Whitewater Preserve, part of the Wildlands Conservancy's facilities here near Palm Springs, California. And I'm with a friend, David McChesney, who is a famous artist in photography, nature photography, and wildlife photography. David is just freshly back from a trip where he took his imagery and the wonders of our desert and went to Washington, D.C. and shared with our government officials the beauty of our desert. David, would you like to say a few words?
Well, it's great to be here with you, Tom. This Whitewater Preserve is an amazing location here on the edge of the Mojave Desert, as you said, near Palm Springs. And ironically, my grandparents, the Muellers, James and Margaret, had a house about 4 miles away from here when I was a youngster. So as a kid, I would come out to this area and walk around. So it's strange to kind of come full circle and 50 years later to be back at the Whitewater Preserve, which is where I caught my first fish when I was probably, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old as a little kid.
That's because it used to be a fish hatchery at one time.
It was a fish hatchery, yes.
That's right. This is actually the preserve. Used to be a famous fish hatchery here in the Mojave, just off the edges of Palm Springs. In fact, I used to fish here with my dad when I was a youngster. Now the fish are very well protected, just like the preserve, and if one was to take a glimpse, you'll see the bird or the fish are probably, is this a fish story? They're that big?
Sometimes they get that big.
They get that big, so I'm not lying. Anyway, this is David's booth. It's all filled with his imagery, and David has a full-time job peddling his pictures. And his imagery not only is available on individual pictures you can hang on your wall, there's postcards, he also does books, and the books that he's produced based on his adventures photographing wildlife around America. Not just the deserts, right? You photographed all the way up to the Great Lakes.
Oh,
and,
sure.
And tell us about what your adventures have
I
been like.
I actually photographed the Western Hemisphere. It's only been in the last 7 or 8 years that I've concentrated primarily on America alone for various reasons. But I've done the Galapagos and the Pribilofs and Patagonia and all over. And so now I concentrate on this country as kind of like an American photographer, wildlife and nature scenes. But I've done 55 of our national parks now. Just did Cuyahoga Valley National Park in Ohio, just on the return trip from Washington, D.C. And I hit the national rivers and the national lake shores and the national wildlife refuges and a lot of protected federal lands that have a lot of grandeur and abundance of wildlife.
So is most of your journeys and travels based on the idea that your camera is going to find subject matter and your trek is to find those special shots?
Yeah, it's a compilation of planning. I try to market my imagery in different places, as well as be in those places when certain species that I'm longing for are more prevalent. And then I try to stick in some harmonica music at blues festivals when I travel as well. So I'll take those ingredients together, and then I'll try to take a trip that maybe lets me play a little music, do an interview here, talk to a store here, replenish my stock at another place there. And I'm always adding national wildlife refuges and Wild Birds Unlimited stores and parks and monument areas to my list of retailers that sell my stuff. So it's business, but I always go after species.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like a collector. Now, David mentioned his music. Now, you do harmonica. That's your instrument, and you are a reigning harmonica champion of the United States, national harmonica champion, and you play your harmonica under the name Hurricane David.
Correct. Yeah, I've been playing this Hurricane David for many years. Many clubs. Many dozens of clubs all throughout most of the Southland, Las Vegas area. But when I travel, I play at other locations. I just came back on the way after the last trip. I was in the Mississippi Delta, and I played on the King Biscuit radio show, which is a show I used to listen to as a kid as the King Biscuit Flower Hour. So it was a joy for me to play there and visit the Delta Blues Museum. And then I usually play pretty much everywhere I go now, and with my presentations I do around the country, I play harmonica at all of them with the visual presentation.
And you get a lot of guest shots where people invite you. You get to be able to make a presentation about your imagery
Sure.
and slideshows, and then you'll top it off with a little entertainment.
Sure.
And you did talent shows for a long time too. I mean, you got a background in this.
Yeah.
It takes you back to your youth, promoting talent and understanding talent. There's a lot of talent involved in your photography. Where did you learn to do photography?
Well, in college, I photographed. My parents divorced when I was 12, and I ended up with a nice camera in the deal. And so I started photographing rock and roll concerts, and then afterwards I started traveling. So I started photographing national parks in '73, and so I've been utilizing my camera's skills since then. And then in college I ran the dark rooms and photo labs, and so it's all it's come to the point where I just photograph everywhere I go now.
Okay, well, welcome back. Once again, I'm Tom O'Kee. I'm interviewing David McChesney, nature photographer and national rating harmonica champion under the name Hurricane David. Now we're inside the lodge here at the Whitewater Preserve. This used to be a little restaurant where we're sitting. This is where people used to sit and have a fish dinner. If you went outside, you could catch yourself a rainbow trout, and you come in here and they would prepare it for you. Anyway, I was talking to you earlier, David, and you were telling me about how you've just passed your 1 millionth picture. Is that right?
That was a while back. Yeah. That's you know, I shoot a lot of frames of things, and I've been shooting for so many years, and I have so many hundreds of thousands of pictures in my files that I realized that I came to a point where I had taken over 1 million different scenes, not 1 million pictures, and different scenes, because you know, as a photographer, you don't keep everything you shoot, and if you have so many hundreds of thousands of things, you know, there's a lot of stuff you got rid of. But this dates way back to, you know, '73 when I first started shooting the national parks. And so that's what I did, I think a couple of years ago. I kind of celebrated that 1,000,000th scene, nature scene.
Right, and I just want to add that, you know, David lives right on the boundary of a national park. He lives in Joshua Tree, California, which of course is a gateway community to one of the nicest national parks in the national park system, which is right out his back door. In fact, he actually calls it out my window. And David, with all of his interest in wildlife photography and his ability to be able to have nature come right into his backyard, he's produced a couple of books. And his first book is Mere Roots at One with the Wild. And this follows his adventures through most of America.
The Western Hemisphere here.
This is Western Hemisphere. Now, how many pictures do you have in this book, and how long did it take you to collect those images?
Oh, well, you know, I don't know how long it took to collect them, but I put about 180 pictures in this book here. But we're going down to the Galapagos, the Pribilofs, up in Alaska, Hawaii, through a lot of the national parks, desert scenes, waterfalls, the Gulf Coast bird life, different segments in this book that showcase different types of imagery, shoreline visions, things I've taken on the edges of islands and on the coast where there's water scenes. And then, you know, it captures my travels through the Western Hemisphere, is what it does. And that was the first book that came out. I'm a Muir. My mom's a Muir. My dad's the McChesney, so I lost that in that regard. But I wanted to celebrate my roots as a Muir. I've always had a lot of appreciation for John Muir and what he's done with the National Park Service and done for conservation in general, naturalist. And so my Scottish Muir roots were celebrated in this book, and I carried over as a photographer to show the places I've been, many places where John Muir had been in the past.
Yeah, now you get a lot of strength from that. I mean,
sure.
Besides being a photographer, was that actually the connection to wildlife, or you think you'd done that anyway?
Well, you know, my grandmother Muir, the lady who lived in Snow Creek, was a big influence on me, and she got me interested in animals at a very young age. So from that regard, her appreciation of nature and wildlife carried over to me. And so, you know, when I was first told that I was related to John Muir, I didn't know who the heck the guy was. And it really wasn't until I got to college and started studying the environment that they started talking about this guy that I was related to, and so then I started to pay attention. So as a kid, John Muir, who's he? You know, but pretty proud to be at least related to the man who did so many great things for conservation and nature.
Yeah, because you do likewise. I mean, you're very interested in conservation and preservation of our wildlife, and and wild areas in America. And David is very outspoken about what the real, true conservation and preservation of our wildlands is all about. And he's very associated with that effort, mostly because of his love for wildlife, although photography is a sideline. Now, you love the desert as well, and this is the book that you just recently produced, and this is the book that you also took to Washington, trying to promote the California Desert Protection Act in the second phase, being promoted by Dianne Feinstein. And David, now how many photographs do you have in this book?
There's 540 images, and this book captures the wildlife, the bird life, the wildflowers, the insects, the night skies, the protected areas, our national park lands, and other areas that are generally protected because of the grandeur. And I knew there was nothing on the market like it when I did it, and so it's a celebration of the hobby, but also set up as a travel guide, because I had experienced traveling the Mojave many times and pulling into some liquor store or gas station and look at their postcard rack and go, oh, that's beautiful, where's that? And then people would say, oh, that's 50 miles back, that's 80 miles back. And I go, sheesh. I missed a lot of stuff doing that. So I created something where people could actually plan out their trip in the Mojave to know how far it is, which road they got to take, how to get there. So it made exploring the Mojave a little bit easier for people looking at the book. And I kept in mind European travelers too as I did the book, because many people come here from Europe in the summertime, other times of the year as well, but this is a guide for them to see what we have here. So all the notable spots, the species and other things are included in the book.
Yeah, basically it's a terrific guide, because if you use this book, you'll find nooks and crannies. In fact, you've ordered to astronomy, because David's included a small caption about what we do in astronomy here in the high desert, and we're very pleased to be in your book.
Sure.
And I'm glad that our group can be part of that. And the idea that what happens is you look at the book, and not only are you going to see some great imagery taken in a master's way, but the idea that it's going to lead you to places of discovery and excitement. And the Mojave's full of that. And David's done a really great job. He recently took this book and gave it to a lot of senators and people in the environmental department of our federal government, so that they would understand a little more about what the desert is. It's not a vacant, empty land, isn't that right?
True, yeah.
And it's full of life, and David's captured it, and now he shares it with people, so they might care about our desert too. But do you have plans for another book?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I will do a book on American bird life, which is bird life throughout our country. I photograph birds all over the country. And then I might have a side book, a children's book about Little Wiley, who's a very popular 3.5-week-old coyote that I've photographed and has gone over very well with the public. And there's a lot of stories about Little Wiley and his life and his interactions with other species that I think I'm going to put into a children's book. It's got a 32-page children's book that, if successful, will be picked up by libraries and schools around the country, and that's a good market. I'm not in the children's books market, but it's something that will expand my visibility amongst book buyers and book viewers and readers.
Well, we're going to wish you a lot of success in that, because what you've done is brought a wonderful place the regard it deserves, and you've done it in a wonderful way. And you're an enthusiast that rubs off on anybody. They all become enthusiasts just meeting you and getting to know you. And Joshua Tree is very lucky to have you as a resident.
And you as well, Tom.
Well, no, it's my pleasure,
Thank you so much.
Anyway, that's our interview for now with David Jesse McChesney. We'll follow David as his career moves through the decades ahead as we continue through the SCDVA network channel. And we put ourselves together with those who share our love of dark skies and the nature that surrounds us. Thank you very much.
Across the Mojave one night, oh, I crossed the desert one night. The stars in the sky, they were shining so bright. as I crossed the desert one night. Left Hurricane Utah after stopping to eat. Oh, I crossed the desert one night and trailed the Virgin River right into Mesquite as I crossed the desert one night. Then I met the devil in the valley of fire. I crossed the desert one night. Oh, I didn't need him, but he was for hire as I crossed the desert one night. Well, I crossed the Mojave one night. I crossed the desert one night. The stars in the sky, they were shining so bright as I crossed the desert one night. I bypassed Las Vegas, the city of kings. Yeah, I crossed the desert one night. And headed out north in the Indian Springs as I crossed the desert one night. And darkness did fall in soon after the sun. I crossed the desert one night. Strange lights caught my eye in Area 51 as I crossed the desert one night. Junction, I was on my way home. I crossed the desert one night. I stretched out my legs at a store in Shoshone as I crossed the desert one night. Then gassed up in Baker like I always do. I crossed the desert one night. In Kelso I stopped for a minute or two. Yeah, I crossed the desert one night. Across the Mojave one night, I crossed the desert one night. The stars in the sky, they were shining so bright as I crossed the desert one night. I breezed on through Amboy, well that's what I think. I crossed the desert one night. Cause I couldn't see it, I must have blinked when I crossed the desert one night. Then reached Wonder Valley and sported a smile. I crossed the desert one night. I thought at that time I'd be home in a while as I crossed the desert one night. I stopped at the inn, there were 29 palms. I crossed the desert one night. And sat in with Chris and we played a few songs as I crossed the desert one night. And I left the inn and I faced a barrage. I crossed the desert one night. It was haircuts and tattoos and all-night massages. I crossed the desert one night. Well, I crossed the Mojave one night. I crossed the desert one night. Stars in the sky, they were shining so bright as I crossed the desert one night. I left the Apollo about 3:15. I crossed the desert one night. And made it on home back to Joshua Tree. I crossed the desert one night. Oh, I crossed the desert one night. The stars in the sky, they were shining so bright as I crossed the desert